$7.47. The little boy could hardly believe it. He looked down and counted the money again. $7.47. He had saved it all by himself. It had taken him a long time, but he had managed to do it by helping people in town carry their packages, by doing chores around the house, and by never spending even a penny of the tiny allowance his mother gave him. He had saved the money for one reason: to buy his mom a special present for her birthday. And so you see, the little boy lived in a fishing village by the lake with only his mother and brothers. He had no father, and his family was very poor. His mother had to work long hours just to put food on the table. But one day, the boy had an idea. If I could save enough money, maybe he could buy his family a week's worth of food. So the boy saved his pennies for months. And finally, on the morning of his mother's birthday, he got up extra early, just as the sun was rising, and he walked to the village market by himself. When he got up to the market, he went straight through the door and reached up high to put his money on the counter. Then he boldly said to the shopkeeper, "May I have a week's worth of fish and bread, please?" The shopkeeper was a mean-looking old man. Oh no! He counted the money slowly and said in a grumpy, grovelly voice, "This is $7.47. You expect to buy a week's worth of food with this? Why not?" asked the boy. "Isn't it enough?" The old man squinted his eyes and growled, "Why, it's hardly any money at all." He turned around and walked to the back of the store. In a few seconds, he returned with 2 fish and 5 small loaves of bread. He plopped them down on the counter in front of the boy. "That's all your money will buy," he said harshly. "But that's not enough for dinner," the boys protested. "That's all your money will buy." The man grumbled and turned away from the little boy. And so the boy left the shop feeling heartbroken. He carried the fish and the bread in a small basket under his arm, his head hanging low. "Now what am I going to do?" he sobbed. "I worked so hard. I thought I had saved up a treasure. But now I don't have enough money and hardly any food, and my mother won't be able to stay home from work even one day. I'm just a failure." But as the boy walked home, he noticed a crowd of people gathered a short distance away. There were old people, young people, rich people, poor people, sick people, handicapped people, thousands of people. They were making their way up the side of a large and sloping hill. The boy asked someone, "What's all the commotion about?" "Haven't you heard? The great teacher from Nazareth is here, and he's healing the sick and preaching about God." The boy strained his neck but couldn't see over the heads of the crowd. In fact, the swarm was so thick that he could barely move. So crouching low, he began to go through the people's legs. He was so small, he was able to move quickly, and before long, he was close to the edge of the crowd. When he finally peeked out from under someone's robe, he saw the great teacher sitting on a rock. The sun was behind him, and he seemed to be carved out of the sunlight. The boy listened to the man speak. He didn't sound like most of the other adults the boy knew. His words were so simple, and yet they seemed so wise. Just then, one of the men who was with the teacher saw the boy and pulled him up by his sleeves. He brought him over to the teacher and said, "Lord, this boy has 5 loaves." The teacher looked down and said, "Little boy, there are thousands of people here, and they are very, very hungry. Will you give me your bread and fish so I can feed them?" The boy was confused. "But how can you do that?" he asked. "This food that I bought isn't enough to give my family. How can it feed a big crowd?" The teacher smiled and gently said and spoke to him in all a quiet voice, "Little boy, don't you know that with God all things are possible? He will multiply all the good things you do." The boy remembered what his mother had taught him about God. He nodded his head and answered, "Yes, I know that God can do anything." The teacher stretched out his hand and asked the boy once again for his basket of bread and fish. The boy thought for a second and decided to trust the man, and he gave him all that he had. The man took the food and said a short prayer of thanks, and he told the crowd to sit down and laid the basket on the ground. Then he closed his eyes, and suddenly the boy heard a low rumbling sound. It grew louder and louder. Soon it seemed as if the earth was shaking under his feet. Just then the boy noticed that instead of 1 basket of bread and fish, there were 2. Then there was 4. Then there were 8. Then 10. In no time at all, there were hundreds of baskets on the ground containing thousands of fish. Wow. And bread. It was a miracle, wasn't it? The men who were standing near the teacher began to give the food to the people in the crowd. Everyone ate until they were full. When they were finally done, there were 12 baskets of bread and fish left over. Then the teacher said to the boy, "Remember, without God you can do nothing. But when you pray and ask God to help, He will bless all that you do and give you the power to do incredible things." Before going home, the boy stopped by the lake in his village and thought about what had happened. He didn't have any money or bread or fish or present for his mother. He should have felt sad, but for some reason he didn't. He had seen a great miracle and was happy to have helped the teacher feed thousands of people. "I only wish I had a small gift for my mom," he thought. But when he got home, an amazing surprise awaited him. The mother rushed over to him in excitement. She pointed to the huge basket of bread and fish in the corner. Some men came by just now and dropped off this basket, she cried. It's enough food to last us for a whole month. The men told that they were giving it to you because you helped them today. The boy remembered the leftover baskets of food and smiled. He looked at his mom and said, "It's not for me, Mom. It's for you. It's your birthday present. Now you can finally stay home from work and rest for a while." The mother had tears of joy in her eyes. "This is the best present anyone has ever given me," she said, and hugged him so tightly.